Hello there. It's me again! I know I said I wasn't sure if I was gonna do any of these other me talking over footage videos in the future, but here I am again, talking about an AU I made for Cookie Run Kingdom based off of Alice in Wonderland. Because every good franchise needs an Alice in Wonderland inspired AU. This AU idea was actually inspired by Lydia the Bard's I Only Paint in Red Now music video, but the designs I ended up drawing were based off of characters in the original movie. I don't really have a set story idea yet, but I have a couple of vague ideas. So without further ado, let's get on with the design, shall we? This video wasn't scripted at all. The Brave Trio was actually the last image in the series that I ended up drawing because of the dread I had drawing 3 designs all unanimously in one image. Strawberry Cookie's design was actually based off of a fan-made rendition I had made of her based off of her original design and what I believe to be, I think, a Chinese exclusive costume for her. I really only did this because, as much as I love Strawberry Cookie, her design is giving... I drew Gingerbrave as a half-human, half-cookie kind of hybrid because, for whatever reason, I have a very difficult time drawing simple characters, and that includes Gingerbrave. The design on Gingerbrave's top hat has a nod to Strawberry Cookie and Wizard Cookie in the form of strawberries, and the candy that tops Wizard Cookie's staff. I really didn't change much with Wizard Cookie other than a couple of stylistic polishes. Other than that, he kind of looks the same, besides the golden accents everywhere. Gingerbrave, out of the 3, was the easiest for me to design. His overall clothing was mostly inspired by his Gentle Brave costume, but other than that, I just took a couple creative liberties and called it a day. In the end, I think the final image turned out pretty decent. I'm not super happy with Wizard Cookie because I don't draw him very often, and I think his design is a bit flatter compared to the other 2, but other than that, we're done here. It's time to move on. Originally, I planned for Marshmallow Bunny Cookie to take the place of White Lily Cookie and being the White Rabbit, but after a couple story reconsiderations, I eventually decided that White Lily Cookie made the most sense within this context. Plus, I wanted her to act as a threat and an inverse to Dark Enchantress Cookie, who I would eventually make the Queen of Hearts, which is why White Lily Cookie has upside down hearts within her design, because I wanted her to be an opposite to Dark Enchantress Cookie. Overall, I'm really happy with the final look. I think I did a good job blending both parts White Lily Cookie and both parts White Rabbit to create a hybrid design, which I dubbed White Rabbit Lily Cookie. There isn't much else I have to say about this redesign because my notes literally consisted of bullet points, hence the reason this entire video is unscripted. So we're moving on. Up next is Choco Cookie, one of my personal favorite cookies from the original game. At first I had planned to make Black Sapphire Cookie and Candy Apple Cookie be Tweedledee and Tweedledum to go along with the Cheshire Cat, who I would make Shadow Milk for obvious reasons. But then I sat myself down and was like, hey, how about you use the cookie that is actually intended to be a pair of twins? And here we are. Similar to Wizard Cookie, I really didn't change much compared to their original design to incorporate the Tweedledee and Tweedledum details, like the bow ties with the little flags hanging off the chess piece hats. In fact, now that I'm looking at this, I realized that Pawn White Cookie and Pawn Black Cookie have different hairstyles. I did not notice this while drawing and ended up giving them the same hairstyle that Pawn Black Cookie has, but you know what? If Tweedledee and Tweedledum are supposed to be exact twins, then I think I can get away with this. When it came to choosing the colors for these guys specifically, what I would have ended up doing like I had done for every other character previously besides the Brave Trio, is I would have taken colors from the Alice in Wonderland character and incorporate those colors with the cookie colors. But for Choco Cookie, that didn't really sit right with me because their colors are so different and neither of them would have blended together properly in a way that seemed harmonious or aesthetically pleasing, so I ended up just using Choco Cookie's original color palette for Pawn White Cookie and Pawn Black Cookie because I think it looks better here. Plus, I'm just a sucker for these guys. I love their designs so much. I'm gonna be honest, Blueberry Pie Cookie is here purely for selfish reasons. When coming up with this concept, I really wanted to find a way to incorporate Blueberry Pie Cookie into this story because she's one of my personal favorite characters and I think her vibe matches what I was going for so well, so I had to include her. The problem was I really didn't know which character I would combine her with because there's not many main characters to choose from in the movie, so I chose a kind of one-off weird character, which is the caterpillar. Blueberry Pie Cookie was actually the first design I ended up drawing because I was that excited to incorporate her into this story. What I didn't realize was the difficulty of trying to combine her original cookie stature with a caterpillar. So what I ended up doing was trying to shape her dress in a way that gives the illusion of like a caterpillar body. I can't say I particularly nailed what I was going for, but I do like the final design. It was at this point that I had decided that most characters would have a card suit tied to their design. Blueberry Pie Cookie was a good dip of my toes in the water because I had conceptualized all these ideas, but Blueberry Pie Cookie was the first instance that I had actually put it down on a page. And for her first go, I don't think she came out too bad. Still could have been better though. I'm gonna be completely honest when I say I had no living idea who to make the Mad Hatter. I thought of pure vanilla cookie, I thought of licorice cookie, I thought of a lot of cookies. Now when I had conceptualized this idea, the ultimate cookie hadn't been released in the story yet, so that wasn't even in consideration for me. But now, at the time I had finally gotten around to drawing this design, the ultimate cookie was released in the story finally. So I figured, what the heck, might as well, right? I really didn't change much with this. What I basically ended up doing was drawing the ultimate cookie in a tailored suit, if I'm being honest. I did choose to completely change the color palette for this one because I didn't think the greens and teals from the Mad Hatter's original design fit here. The ultimate cookie is mostly associated with reds and grays, so I chose a red suit with a top hat and a bright red bow tie. I even added a little nod to the fact the ultimate cookie has tentacles, which I think are only really seen in the cutscene slides, but I decided I'd add them anyway. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, you knew this was coming. What better character to make the Cheshire Cat than Shadowmilk Cookie himself? This one was actually the first instances where I did not like the final design when I had made it, but I eventually grew to like it. I don't think I strayed too far from Shadowmilk Cookie's original design, besides my attempts to making him appear more feline-like, like in the instance of giving him little claws at the end of his feet or whiskers and freckles. The cat form was a spontaneous last-minute decision I drew really quickly because I thought it'd be funny if he had a form where he just transformed into this little tiny cat and then he untransforms and it's this twink. Overall, I grew to like the final product. He's very sly, very mischievous, and I think the pose fits him really well. Honestly, Shadowmilk Cookie's original design didn't need much altering to make appear more feline-like, so it worked in my favor, I think. And last but definitely not least, we have Dark Enchantress Cookie. This final product ended up being my favorite design out of everything I had done up until this point because Dark Enchantress's color palette already isn't too different from the Queen of Hearts outside of like yellows and oranges. Dark Enchantress Cookie was actually the first cookie I had thought of when I had dreamt up this idea of, hey, maybe I could make this an AU eventually. Wouldn't that be something? But in the end, I just ended up having a lot of fun with this one. And that's about it. That wraps up my redesigns of Cookie Run Kingdom characters into a random Alice in Wonderland AU that I've been thinking of. Thanks for sticking around and listening to my unscripted yap session while you slowly watch progress of a speed paint in the background. I appreciate it.